The testing room was silent, cold, and full of tension. Bright white lights hung above a silver platform. Around it stood doctors, soldiers, and alien observers, all from the planet Savoria. Their leader, Commander Sorella, crossed her arms and narrowed her glowing violet eyes. She was tall, armored, and known as one of the toughest warriors in the galaxy. In front of her stood a single human Ethan Vale. He was not tall. He wore no armor, just simple black training clothes. But his eyes, they were calm. No fear, no doubt. Human, Sorella said, her voice sharp like steel. This machine measures pain. No one has lasted beyond level 6. Even our strongest scream at level 8. I do not expect much from you. Ethan smiled softly. Let's find out, shall we? Gasps filled the room. Did this fragile creature just smile before a pain test? Sorella gave a silent nod to the technician. The chamber doors closed around Ethan. He sat calmly in the center, strapping himself into the seat. Electrodes were attached to his skin, his arms, chest, neck. The machine began to hum. Level 1. A low current passed through Ethan's body. A test signal, nothing serious. He didn't blink. Level 2, 3, 4. Sorella watched closely. His heart rate was steady. His breathing calm. Level 5. A small twitch in Ethan's fingers. The current was stronger now, sharp, like needles poking his nerves. But Ethan just raised his eyebrows and said, "Is that all?" Laughter broke out from a few alien scientists. He mocks the pain. Level 6. The light above the chamber flashed. Yellow. Ethan's muscles tensed. His teeth clenched slightly. But then he let out a short chuckle. A chuckle. Sorella stepped closer to the screen. Is he laughing? The technician nodded, shocked. Yes, Commander. He's still stable. Level 7. Now, the pain was serious. It felt like fire crawling under. The skin. Sorella had seen soldiers cry at this level. One even passed out last week. Ethan leaned back in the seat. Sweat poured down his forehead, but then he smiled again. A big, bold grin. He whispered something. The microphone picked it up. Reminds me of boot camp. The aliens watching didn't understand, but Sorella did. She had trained with humans once, long ago. Boot camp, military training. Rough, brutal, and this was nothing for him. Level 8. The chamber turned red. Pain signals were flooding his nerves. His muscles started to spasm. His arm shook. His chest heaved. The technician moved to stop the test. But Sorella raised her hand. No, let him continue. He has the right to stop if he wants. Inside, Ethan opened one eye. He looked at the camera and said breathlessly, I'm still good. Level 9. Only 2 Zavorians had ever made it to level 9. Both were carried out. Afterward, screaming. Ethan didn't scream. He laughed. The sound echoed through the chamber. It wasn't fake. It wasn't madness. It was real laughter. As if the pain had become a joke. As if it no longer mattered. The aliens outside stood frozen. Even the guards at the door looked nervous now. Sorella felt something she hadn't felt in years. Respect. This human was not weak. He was something else. Something dangerous. The machine beeped, heart rate high but steady. Muscles strained but functional. He was still conscious, still smiling. But Sorella gave the final order. End the test. The lights dimmed. The chamber cooled. The door opened, and Ethan stepped out, his legs shaking but head held high. Everyone watched in silence as he walked past them. Then he turned to Sorella and said, Thanks for the warm-up. She didn't answer. For the first time, she didn't know what to say. He had changed something in the room, in their minds. Maybe humans weren't weak. Maybe they were hiding something far greater. Asterisk 3 days had passed since Ethan laughed through the pain chamber. The story spread fast through the labs, into the barracks, and then across the entire base. Whispers echoed in the halls. The human didn't scream. He laughed. He survived level 9. Commander Sorella couldn't stop thinking about it. She had fought in 20 battles, defeated war beasts twice her size, and led soldiers into firestorms, but never had she seen someone smile at pain. And that to a human. She called for Ethan. He arrived, calm as ever. Not even a limp from the test. "I don't understand you," Sorella said, walking in slow circles around him. "Your body should have collapsed. Your mind should have shut down. But you kept laughing." Ethan shrugged. Pain is part of life. On Earth, we learn to live with it early. "I want proof," she said, "not a story." "A test." He raised a brow. "What kind of test?" Sorella walked to a wall panel and pressed a button. The metal doors opened to a massive training arena. Tall obstacles, lava trenches, firewalls, electric barriers. It was the trial of endurance. Only elite soldiers tried it. Ethan looked around and gave a small whistle. "That's dramatic." "No human has ever completed it," she said. "Most quit halfway. The last one broke his spine." Ethan's smile didn't fade. "Sounds fun. But this time," she added, "you won't run alone. I will run with you. I want to see your limits with my own eyes." Ethan's face turned serious. He gave a short nod. "Let's go, Commander." The countdown began. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. The gates slammed open. Ethan and Sorella dashed into the maze of obstacles. The first test was a firewall. Flames surged up in pulses. Sorella moved through them smoothly with armor shielding her. Ethan timed the pulse and ran through without protection. His sleeve caught fire, but he slapped it out and kept moving. The second test was worse. Electrified. Floors. Sorella leaped between safe points. Ethan hesitated. Then he kicked off his shoes and ran barefoot through the sparks. Sorella turned back in shock. "Are you mad?" "Maybe," Ethan said, teeth clenched, "but I'm not stopping." Next came the lava trench. A narrow beam ran across bubbling red liquid. Sorella crossed easily. Ethan stepped up. The heat hit his face hard. His skin was already burned in patches, but he focused, breathing slowly. One step, another. Halfway. Across, he slipped. Gasps echoed from the viewing chamber. But at the last second, he grabbed the beam's edge and held on. Fingers burning. Muscles twitching. Sorella rushed back and reached down. "Take my hand." Ethan looked up, blood on his lip. He grinned. "Still think I'm weak?" Sorella didn't answer. She just pulled him up. They ran through traps, climbed walls, and slid under spikes. Hours passed. Ethan was bleeding from the arms, his shirt torn, his legs shaking. But still he moved. Sorella watched him closely. She saw something strange. No fear, no hesitation. He didn't run on strength, he ran on will, and she finally understood. Pain didn't break him, because he had already faced worse before. Coming here. At the final wall, a high steel barrier blocked their way. Sorella jumped up and climbed. She looked down. Ethan was struggling. His hand was cut. He was slipping. Without thinking, she reached down. Ethan looked at her hand. "Didn't expect that," he muttered. "Just climb, human," she replied. With her help, he reached the top. Together, they jumped down into the finish zone. The siren blared. Trial complete. Everyone watching stood frozen. Then a slow clap started. Then another. And another. Commander Sorella and a human had finished the impossible course together. Ethan sat on the ground, breathing heavily. His body hurt, but he smiled again. Sorella looked down at him and said softly, "You were right. Pain doesn't define strength. The will to keep going does." He laughed once more. "Told you we're good at this." Sorella turned toward the observers behind the glass. She knew something had changed today that the galaxy would soon learn. Humans weren't. Weak. They were the storm before the silence. And they had just started running. Asterisk. The sun was setting over the military compound on Zavoria, but inside the arena, things were just beginning. Ethan sat quietly in the medical bay, his arms wrapped in burn gel, his legs stitched up. Still, his face carried that same calm grin. Across from him, Commander Sorella stood by the window, staring at the training field. Neither spoke, until Sorella finally said, "Tomorrow, the Council will demand another trial." Ethan tilted his head. "Why?" "They don't believe you're real," she said. "They think you're a trick. A fake. Something enhanced." Ethan laughed softly. "Guess we'll have to disappoint them again." The next morning, the sky was dark with thunder. The arena had been transformed into something worse. This time, the test was not just pain or endurance. It was survival. "Obstacle Field 17, whispered one soldier. "It's only used during war prep." Sorella and Ethan stood at the gate again, side by side. This time, the air was heavier. The traps were deadlier. And high above, members of the Galactic Council watched from a tower. "They're not here to test you," Sorella warned. "They want to break you." Ethan just shrugged. "Let's give them a bad day." The horn blasted. They ran first zone. Fire darts from above. Ethan dodged fast, ducking, rolling, leaping. One dart sliced his arm, but he kept moving. Sorella used her armor to shield him from the few, barking, "Stay close." Second zone. Explosive tiles. One wrong step, and you'd be thrown back. Ethan paused. His eyes scanned the pattern on the floor. He started running and didn't stop. Sorella followed, trusting his steps. Third zone. The spike pit. A narrow bridge crossed it, but halfway through, it collapsed. Sorella screamed as she fell. No. She grabbed a ledge just in time, but one of her legs hit a spike. She cried out in pain. The first time Ethan had heard her voice tremble, Ethan dropped to his stomach at the edge and reached down. "Give me your hand." "No," she growled. "You must finish the course." "Screw the course," he snapped. "You're not dying here." She hesitated. Then, slowly, she reached up. Their hands locked, and Ethan pulled. It wasn't easy. Her armor was heavy. His arms were shaking. Blood ran from his shoulders. But inch by inch, he brought her back up. When she finally rolled onto the ground beside him, she looked at him in disbelief. "You carried me?" Ethan sat beside her, panting. "Told you, we finished together." The tower above them was silent. The council didn't know what to say. They had wanted the human to fail. But instead, he had saved their commander. Not for victory, not for glory. Just because it was right. Sorella stood slowly, limping. "We'll finish this," she said, voice hard again. "But you lead now." Ethan looked shocked. "What?" She smiled, just slightly. "You see patterns. You feel the danger. I trust your path." Ethan nodded. "All right then, follow me." And so they ran, Ethan in front, Sorella behind. They crossed the flame maze, slid beneath spinning blades, and leapt over crumbling stairs. Sorella bled. Ethan limped, but neither gave up. At the final checkpoint, the gate opened. The siren blared once more. Test complete. Ethan helped Sorella walk to the center. The medics rushed in, but both waved them off. Commander Sorella raised her hand. "Two." "The council," she said, loud and clear. "I saw him fall. I saw him bleed. I saw him carry a warrior 3 times his size. And I say this, if you still think humans are weak, you are blind. Gasps spread through the tower. Ethan didn't speak. He didn't need to dot. He had proven everything with actions, not words. Later that night, in the quiet of the medical bay, Sorella sat beside Ethan's bed. "Why did you save me?" she asked softly. "You could have won alone." Ethan looked up at her, tired but smiling. "Because pain isn't the enemy. Losing who we are, that's the real loss." She said nothing, but her eyes softened. And in that moment, she knew the humans were not just survivors. They were protectors. Even in fire, even in pain. Especially then, asterisk high above the training grounds, inside a black glass tower, the members of the Galactic Council sat in silence. Their robes shimmered with gold and silver, symbols of ancient power. But now, their eyes were fixed on a screen replaying the event. The human carrying Commander Sorella through the trial. And surviving. Counselor Varn, a reptilian noble with cold green eyes, finally broke the silence. "This is dangerous, Counselor." Pyrrell, covered in purple feathers, hissed. "He should have died. That test was designed to break even our best." "He didn't just survive," another added. "He protected one of our own." They all turned to the silent figure at the end of the table, Counselor Irix, the eldest of them all. Her voice was quiet, but every word hit like stone. "We were wrong about humans." Down below, Ethan rested, his arms wrapped in bandages. Sitting in the garden of the infirmary, Sorella sat beside him, her leg now braced. She was silent at first, just staring at the sky. "Do you know what they're saying up there?" she asked. Ethan smiled faintly. "That I'm a threat?" She looked at him. "Worse, that you're a symbol." And symbols spread. Ethan leaned back against the bench. "Well, I didn't mean to start a revolution. I just didn't want to let you fall." Sorella turned her head. "And yet, the galaxy is shaking." Later that night, deep in the underground section of the base, council scientists gathered in secret. One of them, a thin gray alien with long fingers, stared at the screen. "I've scanned his blood. His cells react differently to pain signals, almost as if they absorb suffering and turn it into strength." Another gasped. "Is that evolution?" "No," the first one said. "It's experience. The body remembers. The pain he's trained for it, conditioned. So humans ... aren't genetically stronger? No, they're just built from the fire of their world." The room fell silent again. The council called an emergency meeting the next morning. Sorella was ordered to attend. But to their surprise, she brought Ethan with her. He stood tall, dressed in clean black clothing, his wounds barely visible now. Counselor Varn leaned forward. "Human, you have disrupted 1,000 years of belief. Do you deny your actions were intentional?" Ethan raised an eyebrow. "I didn't come here to change your beliefs. I came to prove we're not weak." "You proved more than that," Pyrrell spat. "You've shaken our warriors. Some say you're braver than any Zavorian." Sorella stepped forward. "Because he is." The council chambers exploded in murmurs. "I led armies into war," Sorella continued, "but I've never met a soldier who smiled at pain, who lifted another through fire, who finished every trial when his body begged him to stop. If you still fear him, it's not because he's dangerous. It's because he reminds you of what true strength looks like." Irix finally stood. All eyes turned to her. "Commander," she said slowly, "do you trust him?" "With my life," Sorella replied without hesitation. Irix looked at Ethan. "Then so must we." But Counselor Varn wasn't done. He met with a shadowy figure in the lower levels, a secret agent trained in silence and poison. "Find his weakness," Varn ordered. "Whatever makes this human strong, I want it broken." The agent nodded and disappeared. That night, Ethan felt something strange in his room. A faint scent. A shimmer in the air. He stood up, just as a blade flew toward his throat. He dodged, barely Dot. The assassin lunged again. Ethan blocked the blow with a metal tray. Sparks flew. He kicked the attacker back. The fight was short but brutal. Ethan took a deep stab in the side, but managed to slam the attacker into the wall. When the mask fell off, he saw Zavorian markings on her neck. Ethan froze. "Your people sent you?" he asked, bleeding but calm. The assassin looked shocked. "You should have been broken." Ethan stepped forward, gripping his side. "You don't get it, do you? Pain doesn't stop us. It wakes us up." She ran. Alarms blared. Guards rushed in. Sorella was the first to reach him. She looked at the wound, then at his eyes still steady. "They tried to kill you," she whispered. Ethan smiled weakly. "Guess I really made an impression." Back in the council chamber, Counselor Irix slammed her staff down. "We tried to test the human," she said. "Then we tried to kill him. He still stands." "What does that tell you?" Varn didn't answer, but the rest of the galaxy had already started whispering. The human who laughed through pain. The soldier who carried a commander. The warrior who would not break. Asterisk. The next day, the council went quiet, but their silence wasn't peace. It was planning. Counselor Varn stood inside the secret lab, his hands behind his back, his voice cold. "We gave him trials. We gave him pain. He passed them all. Now," he turned to the head scientist, "we give him fire." The scientist looked uneasy. "You mean the serum?" "Yes," Varn said. "Inject it. Let's see if humans can laugh through that." In the medical wing, Ethan lay on a flat table. He'd been told it was a final evaluation. He didn't trust the council, but Sorella had gone on a diplomatic visit off-world that morning. Alone and recovering from her wound, he had agreed to the test. 2 guards held his arms. Then a small silver vial was brought out. The label read, PYX13. Nerve amplifier. It wasn't just pain. It was raw neural fire. It made the brain feel like it was burning from the inside. No one had survived beyond 3 minutes. "Breathe normally," the doctor said. Ethan closed his eyes. The serum entered his veins. The first second, he felt nothing. Second, his heartbeat skipped. Then it hit like lightning. His chest arched, muscles locked. His eyes flew open. Pain exploded behind his eyes. His hands trembled. His back slammed against the table. The guard stepped back in fear. Heart rate increasing. Someone shouted, "Brainwave spikes." He's still conscious." Ethan clenched his jaw. A scream formed in his throat, but instead, he laughed. Not a normal laugh. A deep, almost angry laugh. Like someone daring the pain to come closer. In the hallway, someone ran. Sorella. She had received a secret transmission from an aide. The council had moved while she was gone. They were experimenting on Ethan. She burst through the chamber doors just as the monitor flashed red. "Stop the test." She shouted. But no one moved. All eyes were on the human burning, sweating, shaking, yet still laughing. She ran to his side. Ethan, can you hear me?" He turned his head slowly. His eyes were red, but clear. "Hurts," he whispered. "But I'm still here." Tears filled her eyes, not just because of the pain he was in, but because he was still fighting it. The council members watched from the screen. Counselor Irix stood. This test was not about strength anymore. It was an attack. She turned to Varn. "You ordered this." Varn didn't deny it. Double quotes, yes. "And I'd do it again. Because this human, he's not normal. He's a danger." "No," Irix said. "He's a mirror." and you hate what you see in it. Back in the chamber, the serum was wearing off. Ethan sat up, barely. His body smoked with heat. His hands trembled. Sorella supported him gently. "I should have been here," she said. Ethan shook his head. "You were, in my mind. When it got worse, I remembered your voice." She gripped his hand, and that was the first time she realized this human didn't fight alone. He fought for someone, for connection, for meaning. The room was silent. Then a single medic whispered, "He beat the fire test." A second added, "No one's ever done that." The head doctor turned and made the announcement clear. The human passed. No screams, no machines destroyed, just a man who didn't break. That evening, across alien networks, a message leaked. A human endured the PYX-13 serum and lived. He laughed. He stood. He won. Billions saw it. Millions shared it. And on the edge of the galaxy, warlords began to whisper, perhaps Earth is not to be taken. Perhaps pain is not their weakness. Perhaps it is their weapon. Counselor Irix called one final vote that night. She stood in front of the chamber. "I propose we end this. Stop trying to prove humans are weak and start asking what we can learn from them." Sorella stood beside her. Ethan stood too still, weak, but unbroken. He didn't speak a word. He didn't need to. Council saw it in his eyes. You can't break what has already survived the worst. The council chamber was full. Leaders from 23 species had gathered. Tall ones, armored ones, flying ones. Even the silent sandwalkers of Threx were present. This was no ordinary meeting. This was a moment of reckoning. At the center of the round room stood Commander Sorella. She was not in her armor today. No weapons. Just truth. And beside her, supported by a cane, but standing tall, was Ethan Vale, the human who laughed through pain, the human who carried a warrior, the human who survived fire. Now, it was time to speak. Sir, Ella raised her voice. When I met this human, I thought he was weak. He had no claws, no armor, no power. She paused, but he stood where our soldiers fell. He smiled where others screamed. He helped me when he could have left me behind. And when we tried to break him, he only grew stronger. She looked around. Maybe we are the ones who are weak. Weak because we forgot what strength really means. Silence. Then she turned to Ethan. You taught me something my people forgot. Pain is not the enemy. It is the teacher. Counselor Varn stood suddenly. Enough of this. He's just one human. One act doesn't change a species. Sorella faced him calmly. Then come test the others. You'll find more like him. Varn's mouth opened, but he had no reply. The truth was spreading. Too fast. Too loud. Too real. That evening, the council voted by majority. They passed a new motion. Humanity is no longer under observation. They are now recognized as equals. And Earth is invited into the Galactic Accord. The chamber erupted in mixed voices. Some celebrated. Some feared. But all understood the galaxy had changed. Later that night, Ethan stood alone on a balcony overlooking the stars. Sorella joined him, carrying 2 cups of something warm. Council meetings are exhausting, she joked. Ethan chuckled. I thought near-death pain tests were bad. Turns out diplomacy is worse. She laughed softly. Then she turned serious. You know, you've become a myth already. Stories are flying through the stars. Ethan looked down at his hand, still, shaking slightly. A myth? She nodded. They say you don't feel pain, that you're made of fire and will, that you carried a commander through death. Ethan smiled. None of it's true. She raised an eyebrow. Isn't it? He sighed. I was scared the whole time. I felt everything. I just didn't stop. She stared at him a long moment, then placed a hand on his shoulder. That's what makes it real. Months passed. Sorella resigned from her military post. She traveled to Earth, walked among the people, trained with humans, laughed with children. And then she gave a speech across the galactic network. Her voice reached billions. She stood tall and said, "Once I thought humanity was weak, but I was wrong. They are born on a world of chaos, raised in storms. They break, bleed, burn, and still they walk forward. You cannot conquer a species that does not fear pain. You can only join them or fall behind." The speech changed everything. All across the galaxy, young warriors looked to humans not as prey, but as examples. A new training method spread: the Veil Protocol. It didn't teach how to avoid pain. It taught how to survive it. 1 year later, a statue was built at the center of the galactic hall. It was not large, not shiny. It was simple. A bronze figure of a man standing, burnt, holding a commander over his shoulder. At the base, words written in hundreds of alien languages. Strength is not in the scream. It is in the step after the scream. Ethan Vale. Human Ethan never returned to battle, but he didn't need to, because his story became the fire that lit 1,000 others. He had proved that humans were not the strongest in body, nor the smartest in mind, but in will. They were unmatched. Asterisk.